Hi, my name's Raison and you join me today in my tackle room. I want to talk to you today about bait droppers. It's a very commonly used method, especially on the rivers in England, the River Wye, the Severn, the Thames, and on and on and on. What it enables you to do is to feed baits like chopworm, casters, maggots in very fast flow, but without the use of either soil or ground baits. A lot of the venues I fish, especially for big perch, the one way to get it down without a bait dropper is, like I've said, with ground bait or soil. But the fish don't always like this, and like I've always said, you've got to feed it right. If you feed it right, the fish can be a lot easier to catch. And that is where bait droppers come into it. Absolutely fantastic bit of kit, the way that they work. And if you can imagine, I was on a nice river and there's some big perch to be caught. The water's clear. I don't want to introduce ground bait or soil, and I just want to put neat worms in. Obviously tipping them out of a pot is okay, but when you're faced with a strong flow, they can be 10-12 metres downstream, out of your peg, and also taking the fish with them. What you've got here is a bait dropper. You can see it's like a cage type mechanism there. The hook passes through the loop and into the cork, so it hangs on the pole rig that you're actually fishing with. You can open it up, put whatever you want in there, from maggots, casters. Chopworm is a favourite when you're using these bait droppers. Put it in, shut the side. The loop of metal comes down and actually closes it so it can't come out. Then it can be lowered down onto the bottom of the river. When it touches down, it just opens up, depositing all the bait very accurately and, more importantly, on the river bed rather than in the surface layers where it's going to be taken down by the flow. Fantastic way of fishing. Probably the #1 way of catching big perch, bream, even barbel and odd chub on these rivers. But for fish like perch that like baits like worms, casters, bronze maggots, and live still where there's a bit of flow in the deeper water, this can be absolutely deadly. They come in a couple of different sizes if you didn't want to introduce too much bait. Fantastic. A lot of times this winter on the River Wye and the Thames, I've been putting in quite a lot of bait and I've caught some real big fish. 2 years ago on the Riverfest qualifier on the River Thames, I caught fish up to £3.6, qualified and actually came second in the match. So it does show you that big fish can definitely fall to these. There's a variety of different makes on the market. The only other one that I've got is a Samo one that is very heavy. A lot of the rivers I've fished, there's one hell of a flow on it, especially if there's some added water on. And I know the importance of putting your bait in neat chopworm, especially lobworms with a few casters. It's absolutely deadly. Again, it works the same, just comes undone like that. Exactly the same, little bit of rubber that the hook hooks into instead of a bit of cork, but you'll notice a much bigger weight, and this really helps me on fast flowing rivers. Again, that keyword accuracy, whether we're talking about fishing a lake for carp, a river for big perch, or a canal for a little tiny roach on bread punch. Accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. And a heavier bait dropper on those fast flowing rivers is definitely a plus. So they're the bait droppers that I've used. Not a massive selection, but they do the job. Like I say, you don't need hundreds of different ones. Most of the time, a big one and a small one will cover you. But if you do fish these fast rivers, definitely invest in a heavier one, because that'll make it more accurate and easier to use.